Grab your coffee, kick up your feet. It is time for Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Want to say hey to everybody that's watching. You might be watching us live today on the Yahoo Sports Network. We're out there on a bunch of leading fast services, free ad-supported TV services. Also, you can check us out, yahoosports.tv. But still giving love to everybody watching on YouTube. Keep the comments flowing. We love it. We see it. We read it. We want to engage with you. Caroline Fenton, let's start the day like we always do with 3 points, my friend. What is on your mind?
Absolutely. It is a good morning, Fitz, and it's wouldn't have been a very good morning in the city of Baltimore had the scare in Ravens practice yesterday ended up actually being a something. Now, we can all breathe a sigh of relief. It was not a something. But Lamar Jackson had a scare in practice yesterday. He had a hand-wrist injury, so he left practice about 40 minutes early. He was knocked to the ground. His foot was stepped on. He got up and tried to go through a few more reps in practice, but ended up holding his wrist and walking off the field. He was tended to by medical personnel. So, of course, obviously the team and all of the Ravens fans who were in attendance in practice freaked out, as anyone would. A 2-time MVP could have been a 3-time MVP, and there you go. It's Ravens fans saying, here, Lamar Jackson, you need my foot, take my foot. You need my hand, take my hand. What do you need? I will give it to you. But by all accounts and purposes, and by all reports that are coming out from the Ravens camp, Lamar Jackson is okay. So no reports and no new news quite yet, at least as of 9 a.m. Eastern time, but it looks like Lamar should be okay. We can all, Ravens fans and just football fans, fans of good football and competitive football, can all breathe a sigh of relief. So far, so good for Lamar Jackson. I mean, a Ravens team with Lamar Jackson fits. With Lamar, Super Bowl contender. Without Lamar, do they even make the playoffs?
Ravens fans don't even want to think of that possibility. By the way, you know it's going to be a good show. If we get SpongeBob into the show early, like I'm a little bit Patrick, a little bit SpongeBob, I appreciate all of that. So good work by our team getting SpongeBob in the show early on this morning. Let me give you the first point on my mind. All right, that's the collective sort of sigh that you heard or the collective rejoicing where boxing fans, depending on what level of fandom they have, is we now know that Jake Paul is set to fight Tank Davis. This is one of those moments that casuals can rejoice because Jake Paul is going to fight. And every time that happens, we watch it. And boxing fans collectively roll their eyes. So, look, I'll give it to him. He's fighting somebody his own age as opposed to last year when he took on Tyson. But now he's not fighting somebody his own size. The last time Tank stepped in the ring, he was 135 pounds. That's about his usual range. The last time Paul stepped in the ring, he was 227. So I don't know what we're doing here. I don't think this is necessarily the fight anybody in Tank Davis's world fandom was sitting here saying, I can't wait to see him take on Jake Paul, right? But this is what Jake Paul does. And at some point, boxing is going to have to decide what it wants to be. Does it want to be a spectacle or does it want to be a sport? And right now, I think boxing is far closer to being a circus sideshow than anything else. If we're being honest, boxing is a hell of a lot closer today to WWE than it is to UFC. At some point, you love the popularity. We're going to watch it. It's on Netflix in August. Everybody's going to flock to see it. It'll be a big event. Of course it will, because Jake Paul is super famous, and I get that. But you have to ask yourself at some point, are there actually going to be quality boxing matches that make quality boxing fans want to actually watch quality boxing? And the answer to that is no. Right now, boxing fans, you just need to accept what your new normal is. And your new normal is that you're a spectacle, not a sport. All right, Caroline Fenton, that brings us to our top point of the day. And of course, got to have to talk trade speculation as we get closer and closer to the regular season. Terry McLaurin. All right, I'm going to say superstar. I'm just going to give him the super next to the word star because when you've dealt with everything he's dealt with as a Washington Commander, you're a superstar. Terry McLaurin wants to get paid, and that has not yet happened. So now what we have is Terry McLaurin wants to get traded, right? So we know the trade demand is there, and I thought we could look at some of the teams that are rumored right now to be looking for veteran wide receivers, and we could describe whether or not it's a fit using only words that rhyme with scary, as in Scary Terry. So this is our fit trade based on scary comparisons. Caroline, I'll let you go first with the New York Jets. It's rumored that the Jets are interested in a veteran wide receiver. What word do you assign with Scary Terry to the Jets?
Well, in the theme, before we get into it, let me say I do feel a little bit hairy even talking about this. Allah, thank you for the theme. Because I don't think it's going to happen. Because I don't want to live in a world where Washington doesn't pay Terry McLaurin what he deserves. Because Terry McLaurin has done everything right for that organization. He deserves to get rewarded for that. So let me just put that out there. That is the caveat for all of this, but I am a team player and I shall play along. So a potential Scary Terry to the New York Jets trade would be arbitrary. And I feel like Dr. Seuss doing this. It's arbitrary. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't change anything that the New York Jets are. You can continue rather to put Band-Aids on a bullet hole, but at the base of it, at the core of it, at the foundation of this Jets team, they're not good. They're not good enough. They are not good enough to contend. They're not good enough to make the playoffs, I don't believe. It's arbitrary. You add Terry McLaurin, then wonderful. You have Garrett Wilson and Terry McLaurin, and I'm not a believer in Justin Fields. And I'm not a believer in this infrastructure with the New York Jets organization. So would it make fans feel really excited? Sure, and it should. Would it make fans start to believe again? Maybe. But I just can't believe in a Terry McLaurin to the Jets being a total difference maker. So arbitrary.
I like arbitrary. That's good. I'm going to go Terry McLaurin to the Jets is unnecessary. All right. So I got there at the end of the word. It's unnecessary.
Wait, can I give us credit that the very first part of this exercise, we have given multi-syllable words that rhyme with Scary Terry?
Well, that's because you use big words all the time. So I knew I couldn't just go Mary or any of the Harry. I knew I had to go. I was going to have to expand my vocabulary a little bit. This is where Jets fans are going to murder me, which is like an annual tradition. And I just want to point out, Jets fans, I didn't believe in Aaron Rodgers when he got there, and you guys destroyed me on Twitter. And to which I'd say, okay, if I'm wrong about this one, you'll destroy me. I get it. But you never came back and admitted I was right before. I've been right about the Jets every time. Why? Because the next time the Jets are a competent football organization will be the first time in most of our memories that the Jets are a competent football organization. So what are you going to do when you go out and you pay Terry McLaurin a bunch of money to come in and play for the next couple of years? You don't have an answer at quarterback. You don't really have any solution to what you're doing offensively. And right now you're clearly in a battle to try and not be the worst team in your own division. Sure, Scary Terry would make you better. Terry McLaurin would make you better. Terry McLaurin deserves better than the New York Jets. He deserves to go somewhere where he can win and not feel like he's still living in a life of dysfunction around an organization like he was with the Washington football team over the course of his career, right? Like, I'm not sure that the Jets can turn around and give Terry any more stability or normalcy than he's gotten in his career. He deserves better than that. But more importantly, by the time the Jets are in a position to actually take advantage of Terry McLaurin, he's probably not going to be the wide receiver that he is today. All of this just seems wildly unnecessary. Jets fans, I know your passion. I know you want to win. And the best way, easiest way to win in most of our minds is to turn around and sign the big name guy and think that he's going to bring you to the promised land. You tried that with the guy I don't know you've heard of named Aaron Rodgers. It didn't work. Like, instead of trying to put a Band-Aid on this thing, actually do things the right way. Go through the rebuild process. Just embrace that you are not a great football team today, but in a couple of years, you might be. If you could embrace that logic, you'd be so much happier every single Sunday. And we'd be laughing together at the concept of Terry McLaurin joining the New York Jets. So I'll go unnecessary. Let's go with another team, Caroline. How about the Super Bowl contending Minnesota Vikings? What word do we have for Scary Terry to the Vikings?
Ooh, unfairy. I'm going to expose myself here. I did look up, quote, words that rhyme with scary into Merriam-Webster, and I just couldn't find one that truly encapsulated or truly described how I felt about Terry McLaurin to the Vikings potentially. Unfairy. It would be unfair-y to the rest of the league for the Minnesota Vikings to have Terry McLaurin and Justin Jefferson in their receiving core. Yes, it would be great for J.J. McCarthy, especially because that receiving core has taken a massive hit over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Jordan Addison is serving a suspension from the league. Rondale Moore, kind of their wide receiver 3, he is out for the entirety of the season. But Terry McLaurin and Justin Jefferson, are you freaking kidding me? All of a sudden, the Minnesota Vikings went from having one of the best receivers in the National Football League to having two of the best receivers in the National Football League. And how is that fair? How in the world would that be fair to the rest of the NFL? Now, I'm saying that I think it would be awesome. I would love it. I would love to see Terry McLaurin in this Kevin O'Connell offense and to have two of the most reliable pass catching weapons for JJ McCarthy. So it's just, I love it so much, Fitz. It would be unfair to the rest of the league if the Minnesota Vikings had Terry McLaurin.
I'm going full Backstreet Boy while you're doing that, just hearing like, I want it that way over and over and over again, because I want this in my life.
Tell me why Terry McLaurin should be a Viking. Tell me why.
We'll workshop that. We'll work on it. It'll be better by tomorrow. Look, I'm going to go cherry because this is the cherry on top to the Vikings getting towards the Super Bowl. Like, when you JJ McCarthy as your quarterback, part of the advantage you got in making the decision to let Sam Darnold walk was you got a bunch of free money, right? Like, you got a bunch of extra cash sitting around. Now, the Vikings don't have a ton of it left right now that they can spend, but they can work that out. At some point, you look at it and say, okay, if I've got JJ McCarthy, who I keep yelling on the show has not played a single snap of meaningful NFL football, how do I make JJ McCarthy better from day one? I don't know. I give him one of, if not the best play calling coaches in the league. I get him an offense that absolutely hums on all cylinders. One of, if not the best wide receiver in the league. Oh, I'll give him clearly the best number two that doesn't even belong to be called number two in the league. Like that. That is a method for, okay, we're going to go out there. We're going to look at the Lions and say, hold my beer, right? Like there is so much competition in the North right now to try and find their way to the Super Bowl. This is a Super Bowl caliber move. And unlike the Jets, who I said earlier are not in this window, the Vikings are. Who cares what it does, even if it wrecks your financial future, which, again, it won't. But even if it did, who cares? Give yourself the opportunity to win the Super Bowl. The Terry McLaurin to the Vikings is the cherry on top towards the Lombardi that I think we all know that Minnesota would absolutely love to hoist. How about San Francisco? Another big Super Bowl team that seems to be in the market for a veteran wide receiver, according to some reports. What's your scary word for the 49ers and Scary Terry?
January, because that's exactly when the San Francisco 49ers will be playing if Terry McLaurin is in San Francisco. And look, I think it's very clear we have enough of a sample size to say that when the 49ers are injured, they're not a playoff team. When they're healthy, they're a Super Bowl contender. So what you would be doing in adding Terry McLaurin is adding even more depth into a team that has been a little bit injury prone over the last few years. But you move on from Deebo Samuel. You still have Brandon Ayuk. You still have George Kittle, who's one of the most lethal tight ends in the National Football League. And you pair him with Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, who are more of, I think, complementary pieces to that receiving core than they are highlight pieces. So if you put Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall in a role where that fits them, an appropriate role, more complementary, you add them to Brandon Ayuk and Terry McLaurin, two certified number ones, or, number ones, number two of 1A, 1B in the National Football League. Who is stopping this San Francisco 49ers passing attack? I feel like we've all kind of collectively forgotten about the 49ers as a football society because they were so injured last year that they weren't very good. They're healthy this year. They're a Super Bowl contender. Add Terry McLaurin into the mix. Who's stopping this team?
I somewhat agree with so much of what you said. That's such a passive aggressive compliment. Okay, hear me out. My word is wary. All right, mostly. And by the way, yes, I had to actually use voice text to say weary just because I wasn't sure if it was wary or weary. I couldn't figure it out. But wary is my word here on this one. I'm cautious because the 49ers, to your point, were so injured last year. But the injury bug has bitten the 49ers a couple of times lately. And I'm starting to wonder if it's more than just a bug and it's just part of who they are. Also, some of the pieces that we've talked about have aged at a spot where injuries aren't going to become less prevalent. So I find myself concerned. While most people are high on the 49ers this year, I'm not. I'm very wait and see on San Francisco overall. So if we were playing the video game version, Terry McLaurin in this offense sounds absolutely delightful to me. If we're looking at the real life portion of it, I fear that he'd be going to a team with high expectations that battles injuries that may have some offensive line issues because of that. Christian McCaffrey may never be who Christian McCaffrey was, and Brock Purdy just got paid. What does that mean for the depth and development of their roster? All these cheesy cliche things that we talk about with the 49ers, but there's some reality to it. So I'm with you. I want to. If we were doing the video game version of this, I'm looking at it on Madden saying, yep, sign me up. I will play as the Washington Commanders all day. I never would, but I will play as the Washington Commanders. But if we're being honest in this process, and the actual product on the field, we give the 49ers a lot of benefit of the doubt that it's just going to be a bounce back year. Caroline, I'm not sure I'm as sure of that as everybody else. I am sure that we did a really good job, though. Like, we found words. We didn't match
really
words.
Did.
Like, it's just very semi-professional of us to come up with this many words that rhyme with scary.
And I had the assistance of Merriam-Webster, so thank you to that. But still, I mean, I think we played our very best Dr. Seuss impression. All of this to say, though, I will continue to go back to, I feel icky talking about Terry McLaurin going anywhere else. Pay that man, Washington.
Yeah, we are squarely on the same page. This show will loudly scream until we're told otherwise. Terry McLaurin is going to be a Washington Commander this year. We will die on that hill all day, every day. Okay, coming up, we've got preseason football action happening tonight. Oh, look at those two guys just standing on the sideline. Even if he's not playing, we're still paying attention. We'll tell you about the game next. Drone footage giving us a dramatic look at the early storm surge from Hurricane Erin in North Carolina's Barrier Islands. Tropical storm and storm surge warnings are in effect through Thursday. We start this conversation in football, acknowledging that there are far bigger things than football happening right now in the state of Carolina, a state that Caroline Fenton lives in currently. So we got to start, Caroline, obviously, by just extending our thoughts and prayers and well wishes to everybody in Carolina. Bigger things than preseason football. Certainly the area needs to stay safe right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Send your thoughts, your prayers, all of your well wishes to the Outer Banks and all the coastal areas of Carolina. Hurricane Erin is coming through and it looks absolutely brutal. This state, this area is no stranger to destruction, unfortunately, but it just builds the community back stronger. So when we watch the Steelers-Panthers game in Charlotte tonight, just make sure to keep the people and the families and the Panther fans in mind who may not have the privilege of being able to sit back cozily on their couches to watch this football game. So sending all of our best to coastal Carolina and all of the areas that are affected by Hurricane Erin.
There is a preseason game tonight, so let's get into it and have a little bit of fun. Some of this preseason action is important because the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the field, and there are obviously always eyeballs around the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this is interesting. Obviously, we're not getting any Aaron Rodgers. And again, there are only 3 preseason games now, Caroline, so not 4. So that means that the way that starters are played is different per team. But they're choosing not to play Aaron Rodgers, which means that the first time Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf will get a meaningful snap in any sort of a game against the competition that we've seen, not including joint practices or obviously practices of their own. The first time they'll get any what feels like live in-game reps be the first snap of week 1. I mean, that's a bold decision that just says, hey, we trust everything outside of the game absolutely to be able to get us the, let's say, the comfort with wide receiver 1 and QB 1 that we need.
I can't be overly concerned about this. I really can't, just because Aaron Rodgers is such a vet. I mean, he's been in this league for 20 years. And you can say, well, it's a new team and a new scheme and new receivers. And he was signed late in the offseason. Yeah, well, Aaron Rodgers knew, we all knew long before he put pen to paper that he was going to be signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That Aaron Rodgers has had the Steelers playbook for much longer than he's actually contractually been a Pittsburgh Steeler. That's the entire reason why in the offseason he was throwing to DK Metcalf. That wasn't just for funsies. That wasn't just for S's and G's. And that wasn't just because they're besties. It's because Aaron Rodgers knew that he was going to be throwing to DK Metcalf in the regular season. So I can't be overly concerned about. If Aaron Rodgers, if this was maybe last year, if Aaron Rodgers was just coming off of the Achilles tear and this was going to be his first game back, week 1 would be his first game back from injury, then maybe I would be a little bit more skeptical. Maybe I would want him to kind of knock the rust off a little bit in the preseason, but that's not the case. So I cannot be overly concerned about a certified veteran in Aaron Rodgers not getting preseason work. I mean, he's old. One wrong hit in the preseason, Fitz, and he's done for the season.
You're right. Everything you just said is right. I just want to, as the kids say, keep that same energy on the opposite end of it then. Because everything you just said makes total sense. But this is what we do. Like a quarterback gets signed and we're like, oh my gosh, they were out in the park throwing and they're trying to get that rhythm together and that's really going to put them on the same page. And then we do the same dumb thing where it's like, oh man, reps matter. I mean, there are starting quarterbacks in the NFL that refuse to give up practice reps because they want every single rep, and reps matter. And now we've had coaches in the preseason say, hey, well, it was important to get those extra 10, 20 reps. And so, like, we can't have it both ways. I agree with you. I don't necessarily think it's a huge deal. I do think that there's going to be some communication. That's natural. I mean, my God, we saw Garrett Wilson, who is also a wildly talented wide receiver, and Aaron Rodgers arguing on the sidelines during practices about routes and understanding of who's going to do what where. And the answer that we got from both of them at the time was, well, it's just going to take a little bit of time for us to get comfortable together. I agree with you. DK not playing at the same time as Aaron Rodgers in the preseason, who cares until we care? If in week 1 this offense comes out and it's disjointed, or there's an interception where DK runs a route that Aaron Rodgers doesn't expect, and we're all trying to figure out whose fault it is. If that happens, we can look back to this preseason and say, did they get enough work together? I'm just trying to be fair in the way that we cover Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, the same that we cover everybody else in the league, and the way that we've covered Aaron Rodgers leading up to this point, which then, Caroline, sort of brings to me this whole question of, like, who is Aaron Rodgers today? Like, is Aaron Rodgers a better guest on Pat McAfee than he is a starting quarterback in the NFL? Like, I understand that we just assume that Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and be a world beater because he's Aaron Rodgers, but frankly, he's had some bad moments over the last couple of years with the Jets, and I'm not convinced the Steelers are better than the Jets were a year ago. So I don't know why we're just suddenly assuming that Aaron Rodgers steps behind center and everything's going to be fun and roses and glory for the Steelers.
I am not assuming that. I am not assuming that in the slightest. And when it comes to reps in the preseason, I evaluate every quarterback and every team totally and completely differently because every quarterback and every team is in a completely different position. I was screaming about Caleb Williams not playing in the Bears' first preseason game because I'm thinking Caleb Williams is in his second year in the NFL with a new offensive-minded head coach. He should probably get some reps in the preseason. But Caleb Williams is not a 20-year vet in this league. So I think you have to approach every single situation differently because they are all different. So that's the reason why I'm not overly concerned about Aaron Rodgers. Now, I am not convinced that Aaron Rodgers is going to step in and all of a sudden make the Steelers a Super Bowl contender. Why would you believe that? I mean, when was the last time Aaron Rodgers made a team a Super Bowl contender? It wasn't in a Jets uniform. So I can't expect that he's all of a sudden just going to come in and this team is all of a sudden a Super Bowl contender. And that's another thing is it's not just about Aaron Rodgers. Is this roster good enough? Like, is this team good enough? As long as Mike Tomlin is coaching the Steelers, they're always going to be relevant. they're always going to win 8 or 9 games. They're always probably going to be in the playoff conversation because I think Mike Tomlin is just that good of a coach. But the Steelers made a lot of, befuddling moves this past offseason that they replaced old, inexpensive players with old and expensive players. They didn't really adequately address the wide receiver position, in my opinion. So what makes the Steelers different than, say, the New York Jets? The coach?
I mean,
the uniform
to that end, think about, if we were just talking about the Steelers as a whole against the rest of the AFC, because Steelers fans are always angry that they're not winning playoff games. Okay. Well, Mike Tomlin is a great coach. I take nothing away from that. He's on the same tier as many of the other great coaches in the AFC, but I'm not looking at Mike Tomlin saying he's a better coach than, I don't know, the Harbaugh that's in his same division that has the best team in that division. He's not a better coach than Andy Reid, for example. So is he one of the better coaches in the NFL? Yeah, for sure. But he's dealing with the quarterback that at best, if everything goes swimmingly for the Steelers this year, at best, they have the third best quarterback in their own division. Like, I'm not even talking about in the conference. In their own division, they have the third best quarterback. Like, when you start looking at it from those, and I realize that defense has a lot of talent on it. Some guys that are very, very, very good. I understand that. It's the same damn thing we said a year ago about the Jets. Man, we said this Jets defense is really going to be good. They got Garrett Wilson. They got Aaron Rodgers. I was one of the few people out here saying, I don't care. I still don't think the Jets are going to be good. And everybody crushed me for it. While I'm looking around, they're like, okay, you got a really good defense in Pittsburgh. You got DK Metcalf and you got Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Yeah. Does that make you better than the Ravens? No. Does that make you better than the Chiefs? No. Does that make you better than the Bills? No. I mean, we can go up and down the list. Like, look, I think what we're missing, not you and I, but what some of the collective football community is missing is that everything's going to have to break right, and the Steelers are going to have to exceed the level of talent that they have on the field compared to the rest of the AFC to even be a playoff team. Like, that's where this team truly is, roster top to bottom, quarterback, all of these other things that we rate the rest of the AFC on. They're just not as good as most of the other AFC playoff teams.
And that's kind of the curse of being in the AFC, right? That it maybe in the NFC, you can be just good enough to find yourselves in the playoffs. Even if you're not a contender legitimately, you can still find your way in the playoffs. And that's kind of where the Steelers have been the last, 5+ years. Good enough to get the playoffs, but not good enough to win a playoff game. I don't think the addition of Aaron Rodgers and swapping of spit of old and expensive players is necessarily going to be the difference between making the playoffs and not winning a game and making the playoffs and winning a game. My question here is, though, what do Steelers fans expect? What does the Steelers organization expect?
Steelers fans demand a playoff win. I don't know what the organization expects. Steelers fans demand a playoff win. And like I say it to you all the time. People in hell want ice water. Yeah. Or they think Tomlin should be fired.
And I think I think it's a conversation that's okay that we start to have. I love Mike Tomlin. I love the Steelers' approach to not being too quick to pull the plug on anything. But Steelers fans, I feel like, and I'm not saying everyone, this isn't a blanket statement, but I have heard the same Steelers fans say, we demand playoff wins and Mike Tomlin will never be fired. Well, sometimes those two things can't exist in the same world. Sometimes you have to start doing things differently. And I will give the Steelers credit. They have approached this offseason in a much different way than the Steelers normally approach off seasons. That doesn't mean it's the right approach, but it's at least different. Throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. Maybe a different approach if things just aren't going the way that you expect it. When you make all of these moves to have different results, maybe you have to start doing other things differently. And maybe we start to take a different approach to Mike Tomlin. I'm not saying he should be fired. I'm not saying he will be fired. I'm just saying that if you're not winning playoff games and you refuse to fire the coach or even at least entertain the idea of a new voice in Pittsburgh, then maybe you're going to consistently get the same results.
Maybe, but also I say this all the time. I live in New England, right? And I see it every Sunday when I go to sports bars, and fans are last year were disgusted that Gerard Mayo turns out wasn't the next Bill Belichick. Who knew? Like you see franchises come off. We talked about the Colts and their ability to watch Peyton Manning hand the ball off to Andrew Luck, essentially. And then all of a sudden now it's like, well, wait, we always have a quarterback. Packers fans have been spoiled for generations in the way that make most fans jealous. I understand that this is where we say, well, look at the history. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, now we get to Mike Tomlin. They're there forever, and they're amazing coaches. Look at the history, right? But every time you dip into the coaching practices, man, you dip into the possibility that things are going to be ugly. I don't think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. I think the Steelers are going to be a very hot start. When they hit the meat of their schedule, it's all going to fall apart. And I do believe that this is the first year that Mike Tomlin gets a losing season. I also think that Mike Tomlin is a better coach than most of the coaches sitting around in the NFL. Go ahead, Steelers fans. Fire him. Fire him. Get rid of him because he's 53, I think. Let him go somewhere else, Carolina, and see what he can do. So wrap it here. Do you think the Steelers will make the playoffs this year?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, that's it.
And if they miss the playoffs, don't you have to start having a conversation? Like Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach. And if the Steelers fire him tomorrow, he will have a new job 5 seconds after the news breaks that he got fired. But sometimes you need a new voice. Sometimes you need a fresh perspective. Maybe things have just gotten stale. I'm not saying they have. I'm just saying there is an avenue where we can have that conversation dependent on the results of this season.
Well, all eyes will be on the Steelers tonight and throughout the course of the preseason, obviously. In the meantime, we gave Auburn a hard time yesterday for claiming some national championships. We'll get some thoughts on it from our buddy Jay Busby, going to join the show. He has literally written the book on the Iron Bowl. Sure, Auburn could go right ahead and claim 4 more national titles. Why? Because polls are inherently flawed and because Alabama was way more egregious. There's a column on Yahoo Sports about that from our own Jay Busby. Jay joins us right now, Yahoo Sports senior writer. He's literally written the book, Iron in the Blood. It's over my shoulder right now. I love this. You have written the book on the Iron Bowl, which is amazing. You can get it in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere else. All right. Explain yourself, good sir, because we ripped Auburn yesterday. So go ahead, give us your thoughts on Auburn.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, as well you should. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but the precedent has been set here. What's happened is, now that we have the college football playoff, we kind of forget what the poll era was like when we were wrestling with whether Miami or Nebraska or Notre Dame or whoever was. We now have a system in place where everything is defined. But back then, whichever poll a school liked, they would take that poll and say, you know what, this is it. This is our national championship. And this is not limited to Auburn. Alabama did it. So many other schools have done it. Georgia, Kentucky, all over the place. Everyone does it. Auburn was just kind of late to the party in doing it.
And look, hey, if you want to go claim national titles, I'll go claim a Miss America title. We can all claim whatever we want these days. But you wrote the book Iron in the Blood on the Iron Bowl, and I have lived my whole entire life in an SEC world. I understand that the Iron Bowl and the hatred between Auburn and Alabama probably runs deeper than their actual love and adoration for their own respective school. That is how deep this rivalry goes. But put it in your words. And a little peek behind the curtain of what's in the pages of your book. Why is this rivalry so heated and so important to the framework of college football?
Well, because you've got two schools that occupy the same state with all appropriate apologies to other rivalries. Alabama is a state, has no professional sports. The focus is football, and it's these two schools. And the fans have to live on top of one another, sometimes even in the same house in the case of Alabama-Auburn marriages. But they're constantly reminded of this every single year. What happens on that Saturday after Thanksgiving defines how your year is going to go for the rest of the year. And so it embodies all of college football about what makes college football great. The family aspect of it, the tailgating, the rivalries, the as you said, the hatred that might even run deeper than love. But it's all about what makes college football so great. So you're at this school for 4 years, and then you carry it with you the rest of your life, and you carry those rivalries, you carry those loyalties for the rest of your days. Auburn and Alabama is the perfect distillation of that. Not only that, their Iron Bowls, you can count on an amazing one happening every few years. And no other rivalry has so many named games that we can know just from the name, like the Kick Six, Gravedigger, the Kick, the Run in the Mud, Punt, Bama Punt. There are so many aspects of this that are so fascinating. And that's why I love this whole rivalry so much. And that's why I dug in and wrote a book.
You bring up Auburn, Alabama marriages. Sorry, Fitzy, to jump in here, but I think the idea of marrying an Alabama fan and vice versa is like inconceivable to some people. And maybe if you are not a college football fan or you didn't grow up around the rivalry, that sounds crazy to you, but it's true. You bring up the Kick Six, Gravedigger, all of these amazing moments. What is maybe one of your favorite moments in particular, or a moment that sticks out to you that you could share with us from the Iron Bowl?
I mean, the Kick Six is the top of the mountain. And the reason why that was so significant, to me personally, is my dad and I were watching this together. We didn't have any loyalty either way. And we were just watching this, and we were both consumed, standing up, screaming at the screen. We could not believe it was unfolding. And as that's happening, I'm thinking, all right, look, if we've got this much passion for two schools that we have absolutely no loyalty to, what must it be like for people who bleed and die for these schools? That's what initially interested me. And it just is an amazing kind of all-encompassing sort of rivalry that can bring in even people who have no loyalty whatsoever.
I got to tell you, Busby, you'll appreciate this. When the Kick Six happened, I was on a tour bus. I was still playing with the band, and we were in Germany, and we were doing it so the times were way off, and a bunch of the guys on the bus were huge Alabama fans, and we were on the bus. At the time, the internet wasn't as good on tour buses back then, right? And so we were literally watching the game, and a couple minutes to go, internet cut out. We were like, we're fine. We won the game. The guys celebrated all night having won the Iron Bowl, only to wake up the next morning and find out that one of the most historic plays in the history of the rivalry had happened. So I watched people melt down 12 hours after the Iron Bowl because of that outcome. One thing I like in the book is you looked at some what if scenarios. Like, what if this player had gone here or this had happened? What was your favorite of the what if scenarios just to play devil's advocate with and play around with?
I mean, there were a couple, and the most interesting what if is, what if Tim Tebow had gone to Alabama? Mike Shula was getting pretty close back before Nick Saban arrived to bringing Tim Tebow to Alabama. Now, he ended up obviously going to another location, but what if he had come to, would he have been the same Tebow that we know? Would he have given Alabama enough juice that they wouldn't have needed to clean house and eventually hire Nick Saban? That's one of them. I think the biggest one, though, is when Alabama won the Rose Bowl back in 1926. That's literally what put Southern college football on the map. That's when the rest of the country realized, hey, wait a second, these Southern ball players, they could play. And if Alabama had lost that game, there could have been all kinds of different paths that Southern football would have taken. The SEC might be a backwater conference. College football might not nearly be as important as it is to the South right now, all stemming from that one game 100 years ago.
I do. And we could talk about the Iron Bowl in college football all day long. I could nerd out with you, but you are in Atlanta, which is where the Tour Championship will be taking place. We'll be covering the tournament at East Lake. Something that we debated on the show last week, which made a lot of golfing fans mad, is Scotty Scheffler currently the most dominant athlete in pro sports? Fitz and I said no, but I would love your perspective on it.
Okay, now, I see where this is going here. He is absolutely the most dominant athlete if you accept that he is an athlete right now. Now, you two don't accept that he's an athlete. Is that correct?
He's an athlete, but he's not like Derrick Henry. Like, he's not, you know what I mean? Like, he's not like
well, true.
That's the hard part of it is like my eye test tells me if I look over and see, you know, what some of these NFL players are doing. And then I look at Scotty Scheffler. It's a different tier, Busby.
Like most dominant sports figure is a different conversation than athlete, I think.
True. I think that the question, though, is, I mean, obviously, Derrick Henry is going to run over everybody. But, you know, I think that a guy like Brooks Koepka, golfer, might have a better chance against Derrick Henry than, say, you know, a small second baseman. So, and we obviously believe that he's an athlete. Designated hitters, field goal kickers, we accept that they're athletes. Why not golfers? So it's a slippery slope. You know, you'll have me if we say that poker players are not athletes, because we see poker on ESPN and on TV all the time. But golfers, I think that there's a combination of skill, power, and mental acuity and mental toughness that absolutely make them qualified as athletes, if not necessarily able to run through a defensive line.
I'm going to ask you a deep philosophical Scotty Scheffler question. What is it going to take for us to separate the Scotty conversation from a Tiger conversation? Because every time he wins, it's like Tiger, 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 Tiger. And we keep screaming on this show that you have to really separate the two because of cultural importance and all of the other things. Yeah. Like, how do we accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't. I mean, honestly, because Tiger casts such a huge shadow over golf, and golf is still trying to get out from under the shadow of Tiger, even though he's not even playing very much at all anymore. He's been injured. It's impossible. Everything gets compared to Tiger in the same way that every basketball player is compared to Jordan. You know, we still have LeBron or Jordan conversations to this point, and even held by people who were born years after Jordan stopped playing. So there's always going to be that conversation. Scotty himself tries to distance himself, which is the right thing to do. Until Scotty wins a few more majors, until he starts getting into the double-digit majors, he's not going to match Tiger in terms of on-course achievements. And you're right. Culturally, sociologically, he will never match what Tiger did for the game.
I want to continue a conversation that we had about Scotty Scheffler. And I thought about the Live Tour and about whenever the Live Tour came to be, and they were paying hundreds of millions of dollars to these PGA golfers to come over. I think there was a lot of fear, rightfully so, that the Live Golf Tour would kind of, taint the sanctity that is professional golf. How much credit do you give to Scotty Scheffler and his excellence and his dominance in the game to kind of maintaining the PGA as the league in golf, while Live has just kind of been irrelevant, kind of for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to frame it. Scheffler and Rory McIlroy obviously stuck with the PGA Tour when a lot of their compatriots went to the Live Tour and cashed in for a lot of money. Now, some of those guys, they were on the downslope of their career. They were looking to get a check, get one last big paycheck. And, in terms of pure money, you can't necessarily blame them for that. The political aspects are another story entirely. But Scheffler bet on himself. I mean, it's tough to remember, but he won his first tournament back in 2022. That's as recent as it was. And he went he's gone on this astounding 3+ year run since then. He was betting on himself. He was betting on his ability to claim these majors, to build up the level of accolades and the level of achievement that he has. He was betting on himself heavily, and it's obviously paid off. He decided that the glory and the history of the PGA Tour was more important to him than money. And then obviously, as it's turned out, the money has flowed his way in absolute ocean liners.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing okay. Like, he's not eating, generic mac and cheese. Okay, so Thursday, we get the pairing everybody wants. We get Rory and Scotty, right? And I'm a big believer that the best Batman movies are defined by the villain also. So, like, I need a hero and a villain for all of this. Walk me through this. How does Rory really push Scotty? Can we get this sort of hero versus villain moment that everybody wants?
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because both of these guys, you're not quite sure who the hero is or who the villain is at this point because they've both had their moments in the sun this year. They've won 3 of the 4 majors. They've absolutely dominated the golf world. Rory's a little bit of an interesting character because he won the Masters and then sort of this is a career achievement for him. This is a lifetime achievement for him, and he got to the finish line and he collapsed literally and metaphorically. He hasn't really played as well as he has since then. So, and Scheffler seems to be at this incredibly high level. Unfortunately for your narrative and fortunately for golf fans, there's not really a defined villain here. A lot of the villains actually went over to the LIV Tour, the guys that fans would root against. These 2 guys are both really easy to root for, but in terms of them pushing each other, yeah, that's what's going to be interesting is because they're both hyper competitive. They're both hyper talented. They're both at the top of their games. And if they both are committed enough and bring their game this week, it's going to set up a really great Ryder Cup in a few weeks when both of them are going to be leading their respective national teams.
So who do you give the edge?
I mean, until anybody stops Scotty Scheffler, you got to go with Scotty. He's on an all-time heater. It's the kind of run it draws comparisons to Tiger, but not yet Tiger-like. But yeah, he's doing so well now that it's tough to bet against him until someone else steps up and takes him out.
We've been told basically that this is taking place in your backyard. So is everybody coming over to your place afterwards for a barbecue? That's really important. Like, all right, Busby's house is where all the PGA guys will be right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that Rory is one of the guys that he brings cheap beer and then he takes the good beer out of your fridge. It's tremendously annoying. I've tried to talk to him about it, but he's going to bring the green jacket over. We're going to hang out with it for a bit, so all's good.
Caroline,
what about us? Are we invited?
Yeah.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
I'll bring the good beer. I promise.
Good. I was thinking that the 3 of us, I need to get you guys on board with golf. We need to get the bosses to set us up at a golf tournament. We need to go, all 3 of us post up, and I will show you that golfers are athletes. I'll introduce you to them, and I'll show you that what they do. Again, they might not be able to take a hit from Derrick Henry, but they are athletically inclined.
Look, if I get to hang out with you, the answer is yes. And I'll let Caroline bring the good beer, though. I'm cheap. I'll still bring the cheap beer. Like Southern Boy and me, still bringing the cheap beer. Busby, congratulations on the book, by the way. It's really incredible work by you. Congratulations. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate the time. Remember, guys, go check it out. You can get it at Amazon, wherever you get your books. It's out there. It's out there for you right now. We appreciate your time, my friend.
Thanks, friends. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
all right,
Jay,
we'll keep you updated on the PGA. Like, look, this is remarkable. We're going to get everyone. Look, I like this concept of Yahoo Sports Daily going to different golf courses now, doing the morning show. Mike Goldfarb, our producer extraordinaire, big golf fan too. So we got to make sure Goldfarb gets to come because we need him there. And then, like, I don't know, we do the show, and then I'll wear the little the Knickerbocker pants, and I'll just kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm on board for golf outfits. I've never been opposed to that. Like a cute little golf outfit that I can ride around on the golf cart and get a tan. 100% in, down. Now
I was on a particularly nice golf course that did not appreciate my neon knickerbockers. Okay, are we appreciating the Dolphins offense enough? We've got some Dolphins news that leads to some Dolphins expectations, and we'll break them down next on Yahoo Sports Daily. The Dolphins have activated tight end Darren Waller from the PUP list, physically unable to perform, and he will begin practice for the first time since his retirement in June of 2024. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. And look, if this were 2022, 2023, Darren Waller coming off the PUP list would be a reason for excitement. But, I mean, the last time Darren Waller played meaningful football feels like it was a long time ago. But, Caroline, he's another weapon. If his hamstrings have healed and if he's able to be a healthy version of himself, we've seen how tough he is to cover. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there saying, wow, could this be another key for the Dolphins offense to be explosive? Are you buying it?
No, you're not buying it either. You sounded awfully convicted in what you were saying. And look, maybe there's a world where that is the truth. And Darren Waller, prove me wrong. Prove it for all of the old guys out there in the league. I can't buy into it, though. I'm having a hard time buying into Darren Waller's impact to the Dolphins. And frankly, Fitz, I'm having a really hard time just buying into the Dolphins as a whole.
Look, I agree with that completely. I mean, look, if we're talking about Darren Waller and his productivity, let's keep in mind that my guy hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2020. He had a huge years in 19 and 20. The rest of his career has been fine, but not what 19 and 20 were. So I'm not going to bank that somebody's going to come back on the field and be who they were in 19 and 20. Look, the real answer here is if this stops Darren Waller from making more music videos, then I'm in for Darren Waller coming back to the NFL. But I don't believe it makes any real difference to the Miami Dolphins, who I think are just sort of stuck in this level of, oh, God. Why
did we do that? Why? So his song, so it's like a breakup song after he and Kelsey Plum, obviously, WNBA star, broke up. And then what is he getting, like stabbed on the beach? Why did we do that, Darren?
I mean,
don't do
the
that.
Videos. Look, Darren, I'm gonna tell you what somebody in your circle should have told you a long time ago. Music's just not your thing, buddy. Congratulations on an incredible football career. We need more people in the world that will just look at somebody and be like, hey, I appreciate you like doing this, but you're just not good at it. Like, that happens in football. If I tried to go out and play football, somebody would pull me into the sidelines after I got murdered on the field, and they would say, hey, this ain't your thing. Like, I just need more people to do that for me. Darren Waller, music ain't your thing. Like, it's okay. It just is not your thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I appreciate that his circle is so incredibly supportive of all of his new career ventures and all of his creative ideas. However, I think we need to bring back tough love. I think we need to bring back telling our loved ones no. It's just something I'm going to throw out there. But,
I just want to bring that back. In general, Caroline, I want to bring that out in the world. Like, I want to normalize my friends looking over and be like, dude, that is not a good look on you today. Like, you don't want to wear that out. Like, I want to normalize that. Like, I want friends that can be honest with me. If every single idea you have is a good one, you need different friends. And Darren Waller, you need to get some better friends around you. You know, that there's no doubt. But the Dolphins need to figure out how to make this offense what we thought this offense was going to be. Like, Caroline, for the last couple of ever since they dropped 70 on the Broncos, it feels like we talk about them some kind of way, but the actual product on the field, it just feels like they're just mid.
It feels like we're holding on to something that isn't there anymore. It's like a relationship that's gone south and you were holding on to the best time that you guys had together 2 years ago. And that's when you are truthful with your friends and you sit them down and say, look, it's not working anymore. Just cut your losses. You are not that same, boyfriend and girlfriend when you dropped 70 points on the Denver Broncos 2 years ago. It's just not who you are anymore. And I feel like we're getting to a point, in football, shticks get old, right? When Bill Belichick was rude and short with the media, it was funny when they were winning Super Bowls. And nobody cared that Bill Belichick treated the media with some disrespect, to be honest, because they were winning Super Bowls, so it doesn't matter. You can cover up anything, any bad, negative news if you're winning football games. When you're not, all of a sudden it becomes a problem. When Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay and he wins a Super Bowl and the New England Patriots kind of become the laughingstock of the league, all of a sudden, nobody was putting up with Bill's snide and rude comments anymore. I kind of think that's going to come to fruition in Miami with Mike McDaniel. He's kind of like a shtick kind of coach, right? He's funny and makes funny comments at the podium and he wears his funny gold glasses and has this type of swagger about him and makes these off the wall kind of colorful comments. And when Miami had the number 1 or top 3 offense in the league, it was funny because it was like, look at this nerdy skinny guy who's an offensive genius. But Miami's not that anymore. They were middle of the road, if not bottom 10 in the NFL in nearly every offensive statistical category last year. So that's going to get old. The weird off the wall funny comments aren't going to be funny anymore. This whole persona that I think this Dolphins team has doesn't become a fun story anymore because they're not winning football games at a high enough clip. And obviously that's met with production on the field. I just don't view the Dolphins as a contender. I don't think the Dolphins will necessarily be a playoff team this year. I don't know if I believe in Mike McDaniel. I don't know if I believe in Tua, and I don't think this roster is good enough.
So the hard part with Tua is that you can't have a reasonable conversation anymore. It feels like Dolphins defenders will immediately turn around and say, well, any quarterback can go down on any given hit, so it's not fair to judge him by that. Okay. Well, I also think it is fair.
And
we
that
do
is true.
sometimes. Yeah, but we also label some quarterbacks injury prone. So I think it's also fair to turn around and label Tua as concussion prone. Let's just say it that way. Now, he's comfortable playing. His family's comfortable playing. His doctors are comfortable playing. So I'm not here to judge whether or not he decides he wants to play. I just think it's a fair thing to acknowledge that every single time he hits the ground hard, the collective Dolphins organization holds their breath. And they should, right? Because of the history that we've seen. So now you've got a team that I still think has a million questions about what they're really doing in their backup quarterback position. And they have a quarterback that may be pretty good, may not. We're not 100% sure of the level of his greatness, what tier he belongs on, but he might also be concussion prone with a coach that, to your point, it felt like we loved until all of a sudden you start hearing reports that just won't go away about players showing up late or not showing up at all sometimes for practice, about people just not listening, about whether or not he can actually command a room. All of these things that just continue to leak out over and over and over again. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You're right. If the Dolphins turn around and win 12 games this year, nobody will care. And the conversation will be about how Mike McDaniel is the sort of guy that people want to play for. But that isn't what the Dolphins have been doing. So you know, the problems that they have are still the problems that they have. Is Tyreek Hill going to want to play there all year? I don't know. It feels like every few months we get some different weird distraction moment from him, right? I have no idea. Can they play in cold weather still? No, they can't. So does the AFC run through Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City, cold weather cities? Yes, it does. Yeah. So like the number of check marks against the Dolphins far outweighs the number of check marks for them. I just would be pretty surprised if they're a meaningful, relevant football team by the end of the year.
I'm with you. And look, prove me wrong, but this AFC is too stacked. I think in order for the Dolphins to make the playoffs, they have to get through the Buffalo Bills. I'm not making that bet any day. I would absolutely take the Bills in the AFC East. I think the AFC is just too stacked. And that aside, I just don't think the Dolphins are good enough. It feels like it's now time for things to be refreshed in Miami. We've tried running it back too many times. It's not working anymore.
Is it time for Terry McLaurin to move on? We'll break it down next. Time for hour number 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. She is Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, here with you every single day from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern, live hanging out with you. Remember, you can watch us on YouTube, of course, but also you can watch us on your FAST channels, free ad-supported TV, so you might be watching us on the Yahoo Sports Network. If you're new to that, you can also watch it in your browser, yahoosportsnetwork.tv. It's that easy to get to us every single day. Make sure you check out all of the great Yahoo Sports shows. We got content coming to you at that link all day long. You don't want to miss it. Caroline Fenton, let's start the hour like we start every hour. 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Absolutely. Let's get into it. It's not often in August that you see some NFL trade news, but we got a few lower end trades happening in the NFL yesterday, and they came at a pretty rapid clip. The Chiefs traded for wide receiver Sky Moore and a 7th to the 49ers for a 6th. So a little bit of a pick swap there. The Chiefs wide receiver is headed to San Francisco. Frankly, was a little bit of a surprise to me, understanding that the Chiefs will be without Rashee Rice at some point this season, of course, pending his hearing with the NFL. The Broncos have traded wide receiver Devon Vele to the Saints for a 4th and a 7th. Not sure how much that's really going to do for the New Orleans Saints given their quarterback situation this year, but they add some wide receiver depth. The Vikings have traded defensive tackle Harrison Phillips and a 7th to the Jets for 2 6th-rounders. So again, a little bit of a pick swap there, just offloading some depth. And the Browns have also traded a defensive tackle Jawan Briggs and a 7th to the Jets for a 6th. So not a ton of impact moves being made there, but I do wonder just behind the scenes, what's the thought process? Is it just adding depth? Is it something that you see that certain coordinators might feel like there's something that you can work with there? But overall, Fitz, I think that the truth remains that any trade that happens on August 20th for a swapping of 6th and 7th round picks doesn't feel today, on paper at least, to be the difference, the biggest difference makers for these respective teams coming up this season.
Yeah, this close at the end of the preseason, it's just avoiding somebody you think might be a potential cut and trying to get ahead on the contract for it, right? You acquire the player, you acquire the contract, so you get the opportunity to not have to go through waivers. Makes sense from that standpoint, but you're right, not likely to be a huge difference maker. Speaking of huge difference makers, my first point, Kenny Pickett. All right, stop laughing. Okay, look, Kenny Pickett won't play on Saturday in the preseason finale for the Browns, and that's according to Kevin Stefanski. Fine. This is where everybody freaks out and says, oh my God, it means Kenny Pickett's going to be traded. They don't want to take any chance that he hurts himself. Nope. I still want to continue to remind Browns fans, you're going to carry 4 quarterbacks into the season. Sean McVay is famous for doing this. Not only does Sean McVay not play his starter, he doesn't play his backup throughout the course of the preseason. Why? Just don't want to take any chances. So if you're the Browns and you know that you need to see more of Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, why not put those 2 guys in for this preseason action, knowing that the chances that either of them are going to get meaningful snaps anytime soon are slim? So what do? You give them all of the reps you can give them today. You protect Kenny Pickett, who's going to be your backup and is the main guy you want to come in if you need somebody in a pinch, and you continue to keep Joe Flacco in old man bubble wrap. As long as you do those things, this strategy actually makes a ton of sense to me by Kevin Stefanski to prove that they're going to carry 4 quarterbacks. In the meantime, it means we'll all get a better sense of Dillon Gabriel. We'll all get a better sense of Shedeur Sanders. And most importantly, everybody will freak out about how one or the other looks, or both, throughout the course of the action, without acknowledging that the reason they're playing in this preseason game is because the Browns are telling you they're not going to play anytime soon in the regular season. So rejoice. We can all overreact to whatever happens for Shedeur. We can all overreact to whatever happens for Dillon. But I think the Browns just made a strong statement to the world that Kenny Pickett is their backup, who they're protecting. Joe Flacco is their starter, who they're protecting. And they're going to give themselves every opportunity to go into the season with the 2 quarterbacks at 1 and 2 that they think can actually help them win football games right now. Browns fans hate it. I understand the logic completely. Caroline, that brings us to our top point. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I feel like the Browns have kind of, in the Browns quarterback room, have kind of been the butt of a lot of jokes in this offseason. But I actually think the Browns are approaching this in a really, really smart way. Now, is carrying 4 quarterbacks the smartest thing in the world? Of course, no, it's not. Is drafting 2 quarterbacks in the same draft smart? Probably beg to differ. No, it's not. But it is clear that they just want to see what they have in Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And they don't want to throw either of them to the wolves in the first, 6-7 weeks of the season. The Browns have an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. So throw Joe Flacco out. Let your young quarterbacks learn and grow and mature a little bit. And if the Browns are absolutely terrible, then you throw the young guys out there and see what you have and you see what sticks. So I don't think that this is a bad approach by the Browns in the slightest.
By the way, Caroline, I will say this. For all of the controversy of the offseason, I would not have brought 4 quarterbacks in. I wouldn't have drafted 2 quarterbacks. I wouldn't have given myself this quarterback room. But from the day that camp started to right now, I give the Browns an A+ for how they're handling the quarterback position. I know everybody wants to just crush them because people want Shedeur out there. I think what Kevin Stefanski is doing is measured. It's smart. It's good for the development of the players in the room, and it's good for the rest of the roster who can see every single day who gives them the best chance to win. I genuinely believe, as hard as it is for conspiracy theorists everywhere to believe, I believe that Kevin Stefanski thinks that Joe Flacco gives them the best chance to win. And if that's the case, start him. A+ for the Browns. How about the rare A+ for the Cleveland Browns? Okay. I don't think either of us can give an A+ to the Washington Commanders this offseason for Terry McLaurin not getting a deal done. And I want to be clear because we started the show talking about different places that Terry McLaurin could go. You and I both squarely believe Terry McLaurin is going to be a Washington Commander this year. I think he should be a Washington Commander. Caroline, I think this is wildly important. As much as it was important for them to get new ownership and a new organizational structure and a quarterback and all of these things, I think they are at one of those incredible moments, key moments, that everything turns with. Terry McLaurin needs to be a Washington Commander if they want to win football games.
I'm with you 100%. And I always say that sometimes it takes time for teams to build, for organizations to build. That, I talked about the Carolina Panthers, and I think that the Carolina Panthers are probably in year 2 of about a 4 to 5 year rebuild. But anything can change overnight for the good or for the bad in the National Football League. And when the Washington Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels, they accelerated their rebuild by decades. That all of a sudden the Washington Commanders went from being a not very good football team to now a Super Bowl contender overnight, because that's how much of a difference maker Jaden Daniels was. So why, after 1 year of getting to the NFC Championship game, all of a sudden you want to disrupt one of the keyest cogs that made Jaden Daniels great last year? That Terry McLaurin was Jaden Daniels' go-to guy. Terry McLaurin was such a pivotal part in Jaden Daniels' success and this team's success last year. You had 1 year of that. Now you have actual legitimate Super Bowl hopes and Super Bowl expectations, and all of a sudden you just want to pull that away from the team and from your quarterback. And on top of that, Terry McLaurin's done everything right. The Commanders organization, the Washington organization, has been a bleep show for really the last 5-10 years. Finally, you have some stability. And Terry McLaurin has been kind of a shining star in the face of the organization, even when things were rough, when PR and publicity was bad. So you're really just going to let him walk because he wants a new deal right when you're getting good again? It doesn't make any sense to me, Fitz.
5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. The year before that, 919. So in that range, coming off a year with 13 touchdown catches. I say this every time a quarterback is drafted. If you identify that you have your future star, you have an obligation as an organization from day one that you've identified their stardom to surround them with whatever it takes to get the most out of their early development. We want to live in this teeter-totter society for quarterbacks where in the beginning, the talent around them lifts the quarterback up, but eventually it's up to the quarterback to lift everybody else. The only way you get there is if you put the pieces around to help continue to develop that quarterback. Washington did some really smart things. Keeping Cliff Kingsbury this year as their offensive coordinator, I think, is one of the biggest offseason moves of the league that we're not talking about. It's really smart because he gets another year in that system. And I hope that Cliff Kingsbury stays with Jaden Daniels as long as possible for continuity's purpose. But also, continuity means I need Terry McLaurin in the room. In fact, if another team had drafted a rookie quarterback and after 1 year they looked really good and Terry McLaurin was available, I'd be screaming, go get him. Look at the rest of this wide receiver room. I mean, if you look right now at the depth chart, Luke McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel are your only other 2 guys that anybody even gives a damn about. KJ Osborne, Jacoby Jones, Michael Gallup. Those are not world-beating, oh my God, we're going to have an epic wide receiver room. Like, this is a team in the same division as the Philadelphia Eagles who just won the Super Bowl. You are coming off of the type of year that Commanders fans have waited a generation for. literally a generation of watching your team stink every weekend and just getting kicked in the gut by them over and over and over again. You finally get your quarterback. You finally start winning games. And now you make this complicated? I don't understand it. Frankly, it's all funny money anyway. Give him the money he wants, whatever it takes, because who's going to be mad at it? You've got a quarterback on a rookie deal. Figure out the cash later. I don't care what Terry McLaurin wants. Sign him, because you need him this year if you want to have any chance at a Super Bowl. And if you don't want to have any chance of a Super Bowl, after what you've put your fans through for the last 20 plus years, shame on you, Washington. You have to sign Terry McLaurin.
What you just said is exactly what I have been, fighting over with the people that are anti-signing Terry McLaurin in Washington, because their point will be, well, Terry McLaurin's going into his age 30 season, and age 30 and beyond is not very kind and not very forgiving to wide receivers. So what if Terry McLaurin in year 2 of this new deal starts to take a step back? Worry about it then. That's a then problem, not a now problem. What happens if this? What happens if that? What if we can what if ourselves to death? Right now, Terry McLaurin gives the Washington Commanders their best opportunity at a Super Bowl. So you think about that now. You worry about the 2 years from now, 2 years from now, you'll figure it out. And if you have to pay for a decision then, now, or if you have to pay for your now decision in a couple of years, then do it. Because if it means that you get to back-to-back NFC championship games and you get a Super Bowl out of it, don't you think that's worth it? I do.
My God. And then, Caroline, I've got over the cap up right now. The team cap space this year is $16.9 million. They'd have to work some things out. Next year, they have $64 million right now sitting available. The year after that, they have $193 million. All while they've got Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal. Like, this is the time. I don't care if my favorite owner has to spend
you have a quarterback on a rookie
money.
deal.
Spend. And then who are you going to get, Washington, today, right now? Okay, fine. You decide you're out. All right. Who is going to replace the production of Terry McLaurin? Who's going to replace the game wrecker? Harry Douglas, our mutual friend, always said that day one of installs every single week, day one, they go to the defense and they go to the offense, and they spend the first day of installations learning your defensive assignments for the week are spent focused just on game wreckers. If you don't have a game wrecker, you've just made the entire prep for the week easier. If Washington gets rid of Terry McLaurin, they make the prep against their team easier. Like, all of these are just different Legos I stack up, and I keep looking at it and thinking, man, sometimes smart organizations do stupid things. Ever since the Commanders changed hands and are no longer Dan Snyder's organization, they've been really smart, and they've done some really great things. They've gotten it right over and over and over. Don't screw this one up. That's all we're asking, is don't screw this one up, Caroline. Like, this to me is simple. And if they waste a year of Jaden Daniels because of basically what comes down to $10 million total, if they let $10 million difference in contract waste a year of Jaden Daniels, they should be embarrassed with themselves.
It feels so trivial because it's so obvious to all of us what needs to happen. Look, if you're in a win now mode, and I'll say the same thing about Terry McLaurin and the Commanders that I do about Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals. You don't want to pay them now. Okay, fine. You're going to trade him. You're going to trade him today on August 21st and get what? A 2026 first or second round pick? What's that going to do for you now? You are in a win now mode. Now, for teams like the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns and teams that are not in win now mode, then you collect the picks. Take everything that you can get because you are planning for the next 5 years, not the next 5 months. The Washington Commanders are playing for the right now to capitalize on Jaden Daniels in his rookie year, or in his rookie deal, excuse me. You want to capitalize on that as much as you can. So what? You're going to trade Terry McLaurin for a 2026 first? What are you going to do in 2025? We just saw some deals, just kind of highlighted them. The caliber of receivers that are on the market right now are Devon Villay and Sky Moore. Sky Moore has less than 500 total career receiving yards. That's your master plan, to replace a guy like Terry McLaurin, who does not get enough credit for what he has achieved and accomplished in his career so far. Like, that just, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make business sense, and it doesn't make football sense. KASS.
Keep Yeah, keep it simple. That's the other Caroline Fenton that I've learned that I say all the time now. It's just keep it simple, stupid. Like, just keep it simple.
It's not that hard.
So we know the expectations in Washington. The expectations in playoffs are bust. What are the expectations in New England? The Patriots going to be on the field tonight. We'll see some Mike Vrabel on the sideline. We got a rivalry matchup. We'll tell you about it coming up next.
Oh, are you ready? Are you ready?
Go ahead, Ephesians.
I'm Eli Manning. I'm nice. Tom Brady's the GOAT. Psych! I beat him twice! Hold me back! Hold me back! Hold me back!
Oh, Eli trash talking is the glory I need. I need it every single morning. That never gets old. Neither does the rivalry.
Never
it just
seen
feels
that.
different. You've never seen? Oh, trash talking Eli, by the way, he's a delight.
Oh, I feel like the Mannings, both Eli and Peyton, ever since they retired, have just been like on a long stream of side quests that I'll just turn on the TV and I'm like, what's Peyton doing in a beer commercial? I'll turn on the TV. I'm like, what's Eli doing? Advertising this. Like, it's just like they're everywhere. And I can't get enough of it, Fitzy. I truly can't.
Yeah, if we could invent a time machine and go back and tell the world how popular the Manning brothers would be 20 years ago, I don't think anybody would buy it. Also, if I invented a time machine, I would want to go back to the 90s and be like, I don't know, Google me, and then we'll tweet about it, and we could just post it on Facebook just to watch like confusion on people's faces, not knowing what we're talking about. These are things that didn't exist, Caroline.
Buy Bitcoin. Like that, like if I could go back. Back into the late 90s when I was an infant, I would tell myself, buy Bitcoin with every single dollar the tooth fairy gives you, and you're going to be a cajillionaire. Ugh.
I just want to point out that if future me showed up 20 years ago and said, buy Bitcoin, a phrase that would have meant absolutely nothing to me.
Nothing.
I would have thought I just did some really weird drugs. Okay, let's get into the matchup we have. We've got the Giants and the Patriots in preseason football. Okay, let's start here. It was presented to us. Is this the best cross-conference rivalry in the NFL? Because we all know that the Giants obviously have taken the Patriots down. To which I would say, Caroline, clearly, it can't be a rivalry until you win one. Like, the Patriots aren't a rival to the Giants. All the Giants do is win Super Bowls when they take on the Patriots. So there's no rivalry there.
As somebody who is a fan of a college team that does not beat their rival nearly enough, I will say I disagree with you there, because you can still have a rivalry even when one team doesn't win that often. Okay, it's still a rivalry. There's still hatred there. I feel like it's like a nouveau riche NFL rivalry, and maybe that's more like Chiefs Eagles would be the best, like right now, present day new, cross rivalry. That one I feel like would be like the best one of the 2000s. But of all time, I feel like in order for it to be the best rivalry of all time, it probably needs to cross over different generations and different iterations of teams, which the Giants and the Patriots haven't.
There is not another morning show anywhere in the world today, and I will stand by this take without any factual evidence, that is going to use nouveau riche in the description of any. Like, I don't care if we're talking about football or really anything. Nouveau riche is not going to be used anywhere else today. That is a chef's kiss.
It's a French lesson.
That is a perfect 3 years of French. I couldn't even say my first name. Nonetheless, nouveau riche. Okay. I will say this. We're talking greatest. Thank you so much. Cross-conference rivalries. Steelers-Cowboys, comes to mind, but that's also my age. I'm the first to admit. Steelers-Cowboys comes to mind because I grew up with my dad talking about how important those Steelers rivalries, Steelers-Cowboys games were in the 70s. You see some of the Hall of Famers that were there. Like, you walk through the NFL Hall of Fame, you're reminded how important Steelers-Cowboys felt, and it still feels special when those two teams play. So I think that that's probably a better rivalry because it has more generations behind it. I often get sucked into a rivalry that I don't feel personally. I've got a Raiders helmet sitting over my shoulder. Everybody can see. I don't feel the Raiders rivalry necessarily, but many people do tell me that the Raiders 49ers is a rivalry worth noting. I'm not sure I buy that.
I love a geographical rivalry because they just kind of make sense. And I guess, the Raiders and Niners, both West Coast teams, like that kind of makes sense. And we have so many, divisional rivals. I think the Bears Packers is the best rivalry that has, ever been, it ever existed in the NFL. I think a new one, and I'm a Saints fan, so I'm probably biased here, but I love the Falcons Saints rivalry. But those are divisional rivalries. Like, those make sense. Right. Those are obvious. You see these teams twice a year. You see these teams every single year. Fitz, I just don't think the NFL makes rivalries like they used to. Like, I think that the rivalries exist in the NFL, and I know that's probably an unpopular take, and I know there's probably old head NFL fans that are wagging their fingers at me, but the rivalries now are born from players. It's Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, or Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow. It's not necessarily Chiefs Eagles, but we want to see. I think now as a football society, we become more and more obsessed with individuals rather than we have teams. But I just don't think, and I'm a college football fan. That is my favorite sport in the world. So obviously, we just had Jay Busby on to talk about the Iron Bowl. Now that is bitter. Auburn hates Alabama, and Alabama hates everything to do with Auburn. Ohio State and Michigan, those are, deep-seated rivalries, that those schools exist just to hate one another. We don't have rivalries like that, I don't think, in the NFL. Fairness, even Packers-Bears doesn't feel like that anymore.
So I will. For the context of what we're talking with cross-conference rivalries, that's where it gets much more difficult. It's really hard to find an AFC versus NFC rivalry that hits the same way. What you're talking about, I genuinely believe, as I've said for years, the NFL is my favorite sport in the world. College football is my favorite sport to cover because I don't care who wins or loses. There is nothing like rivalry week in college football. Like, as somebody that has absolutely no skin in the game, watching that but the college football equivalent of a cross-conference rivalry would have to be a cross-conference rivalry. And that gets tougher. Like, you'd be talking about, we've got Texas, Ohio State, starting the season in a couple weeks. But, like, it's harder to find a cross-conference rivalry that hits the same way as any of the rivalry week rivalries hit. So, it is. That's why I hate it every week. Every year we need to come up with different words. It would be like
Florida State or Florida Miami.
Yeah.
But those are cross-conference rivalries, but those are geographical rivalries. Those make sense. Clemson and South Carolina. It's in the state of South Carolina, but two different conferences. So geographical, but different conferences nonetheless.
So let's look at this cross-conference preseason matchup. We've got the Giants and the Patriots. Vegas loves the Patriots. We've talked about that a lot. Who has the higher ceiling in your mind, the New York Football Giants or the New England Patriots?
It's interesting because I think both of these teams have much different vibes or narratives going into it. I think that the vibes in New England are so incredibly high. You know, they get their guy, their golden boy, Mike Vrabel, back in New England, and everybody's excited about Drake May stepping into year 2. And look, I'm not here to bust, anybody's bubble here. I think the Giants' ceiling is higher. And I just think that we've all become so obsessed with the Giants being a joke of a football team that we can't see the improvements that they've made year over year. And look, I understand Russell Wilson is a shell of what he used to be. I totally and completely understand that. They are in transition. They are kind of grooming their quarterback of the future in Jackson Dart. But are we just going to ignore how good the Giants defense has the opportunity to be? Are we going to ignore that? Like, I think that the Giants can keep themselves in a lot of games that we don't feel like they will even be in today on August 21st because of how nasty that defense is going to be. I think the Patriots are still just too young of a team. Drake May is just too big of a mystery and a question mark to me. This roster as a whole is really young. They've drafted a lot of really good pieces, but they're still young and inexperienced. So with that defense, I have to say the Giants have a higher ceiling.
The Giants' defensive line has a chance to be no, I think the Giants' defensive line has a chance to be the best in the NFL. That defensive line is going to be absolutely atrocious for anybody to try and stop. That gets really interesting to me because that's one thing that we've learned in the preseason that I think we can take is, look, I know Abdul Carter got pancaked last week. Fine. Abdul Carter is going to be an absolute beast. The depth on that defensive line is what really makes it hit at a different level to me. So now you've got the ability to just work players in a rotation that's going to be tough for offensive lines to keep up with. That defensive line is going to make games particularly ugly. And when your defensive line is that good, all of a sudden I think while I think that the Patriots have a higher ceiling, I think at some point when I look at this, like, it's easier for me to find a path for the Giants to win some games I didn't think they could win. Like, the Patriots are young. Drake May is going to have to learn the Josh McDaniels offense. I think the Patriots are a 6 or 7 win team this year that feels much better than where they were. The defensive line being as good as I think it's going to be, combined with the fact that even though I'm the one that keeps yelling Russ is washed, he's looked pretty good in the preseason. Like, I don't know. They still have Malik Neighbors. They still have one of the better wide receivers in the conference. I'm looking around thinking the Giants can probably sneak up on some people. So weirdly, I think the Patriots are going to underperform expectations, and the Giants, I'm in on at this point, outperforming expectations. Even if that means they both end up being 6 or 7 win teams, that would be an underperforming year for Vrabel and an overperforming year for Dable.
And I think we have to look at the schedules as well, because I think a lot of times we'll go off of just vibes, like, oh, this team feels like a 6-win team. But then you look at the schedule and you realize, oh, actually, there's way more gettable teams here. I do think the New England has a more favorable schedule. Just looking at their schedule, they have the Jets, obviously, the Titans and the Saints. They play the AFC South and the NFC South. Well, that right there, 2 games with the Jets, the Titans and the Saints, that's 4 right there. And then looking at the rest of their schedule, they don't have it up in front of me, but I think there's about 6 to 7 gimmies, or 6 to 7 gimmies plus winnable games that, if you look at New England's ceiling being around 7 to 8 wins, I think that they can get to that point. That's just if these teams that we view as going to be horrific actually are as bad as they are, and New England continues to get better week over week over week. But that being said, I think that the Giants have the opportunity that over the next couple of years, not this year, I don't think that the Giants are going to be a playoff team this year. I don't think that they necessarily have to be a playoff team in order to show growth. I think maybe 3 to 4 years from now, we could look back on the way, and that's if Dable and Joe Schoen, the general manager in New York, make it over the next 3 to 4 years. But we might be looking back on the way that the Giants have built this football team, and we say, yeah, that's a way that you can win in modern football. Continuing to build through the defense, not pushing and overdrafting a quarterback in the draft just because you feel like you need a quarterback, and then making a swing, as they did, to trade up and get Jackson Dart for the guy that you believe is the guy. It's a slow build, and I don't know if this was necessarily the Giants' philosophy or roadmap to building a potential contender. I'm not saying that they will be a potential contender, but I am saying with how filthy this defense is, how much I've seen from Jackson Dart, granted through 2 preseason games, but nonetheless, and Malik Neighbors has the ability to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL for the next 5 to 10 years. Those are all key pieces of a championship contender. So maybe the Giants do show us a new roadmap to contention.
The only unfortunate thing you mentioned schedule, according to Warren Sharp's 2025 schedule analysis, he does it different. He identifies by Vegas odds to project win totals, and that's how he goes through all of it. According to his projections, the Giants have the toughest schedule in the NFL. So we'll see how that plays out. Speaking of, according to Warren Sharp, speaking of Vegas odds, we're going to get some expertise. Everybody talking about Mahomes, everybody talking about the AFC. What does the Fox say? We'll talk to our own Ben Fox next.
AFC
Welcome back
West odds AFC West odds provided by BetMGM. The Kansas City Chiefs have the best odds to win the division. No surprise there. Followed by the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Las Vegas Raiders. As of course, August 21st. Those are absolutely subject to change. The AFC West, I think, is going to be one of the more intriguing divisions in football this year. Anybody could end up being that second best team in the AFC West, or is there maybe even a new sheriff in town in the AFC West? We'll get into all of that with our friend Ben Fox, senior sports betting analyst over at Yahoo Sports. Let's start there, Ben. Appreciate you for joining us this morning. AFC West, could there potentially be a run for the number 1 spot in that division? And if so, who?
Yeah, so look, the segment is called What Does the Fox Say, right? So I love referring to myself in the third person. That's always a good start to any morning. The Fox says, watch out for the Broncos. Having been out here in Vegas the last week and surviving so far still, a lot of people like the Broncos, both the public and some respected bettors. So some respected bettors like the Broncos over 9.5 wins for their win total. The Broncos, as we just saw that odds board at plus 310 in the AFC West, those odds have been shrinking. They were about plus 350 or a little higher a week ago or so. And because of a lot of that action, both respected and public, they're now tied with the Chargers at plus 310 as that second choice in the AFC West. And the Broncos, just to put in perspective, at plus 310, they're the most bet team to win any division. So of any NFL team to win any division at BetMGM, more people have bet on the Broncos, more money is wagered on the Broncos. So a lot of love in Denver. I think that's because the defense, number one in DVOA last year, they're returning 20 starters total on both sides of the ball. And Sean Payton really loves Bo Nix as well, right? So he feels like he has his quarterback. They brought in another corner in the first round, and Jedi Barron from Texas. So they really feel like that defense is stacked. And I know Fitz is a little of the Chargers fan. We can go over that too. But a lot of people love the Broncos and are betting them to win the AFC West.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with the Raiders helmet over my shoulder, thankful that neither of you mentioned how terrible my favorite team's odds are. All right, let's keep talking about teams with high expectations, though. Okay, the Commanders and the Bengals, one team was ahead of schedule, the other underachieved. So do bettors seem to think that we'll see some sort of regression? What does the Fox say? Do.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one. Both these teams, right? The AFC, I've compared a little bit to like the Western Conference and the NBA, right? It's like the conference you don't want to be in to make the playoffs. But both these teams have roughly similar playoff odds at BetMGM. So the Bengals are minus 145. The Commanders are minus 140. And both have win totals of 9.5. Although the Bengals did open at 10.5, got bet down to 9.5. I think for the Bengals, a couple of questions, right? Number one, Trey Hendrickson. What are we doing? We signing him? We trading him? That defense was 27th in DVOA last year, and that was with him. You obviously don't want to take too much out of preseason games, but that defense has not looked good in the preseason without him. They just don't have a lot there, and so that's a big concern. Another concern, the offensive line. They were 31st, according to Pro Football Focus, coming into this season. Joe Burrow obviously can get out of pressure if he has to. Great quarterback, but you don't want him to be under pressure every single snap. So I think those are the two big concerns for the Bengals. They do have the 9th easiest schedule, but with that defense and that offensive line, how much can Burrow do? As we'll get into, a lot of people like him for MVP. I think that's a dual thing, right? Both because he'll throw for a lot of yards and also because that defense might be terrible. So every game might be 38-35. And on the Commanders side, high expectations. I think they'll be in the playoff mix again. I like them a little more to make the playoffs. BetMGM bettors do as well. They have about 50% of the bets, but to make the playoffs, but 70% of the money, whereas the Bengals have about 50% of the bets, a little more, but 40% of the money. So more people betting on the under there for the Bengals not to make the playoffs. And the Bengals also started 1-11 under Zach Taylor, I believe, the last 6 years in their first 2 games. They got off to those slow starts. I would look at the Commanders here of those 2 teams, obviously pending the Terry McLaurin situation and resolution of that, because they don't have a ton on offense behind McLaurin.
Yeah, you bring up Joe Burrow MVP. Let's get into that. What does the Fox say? Joe Burrow or the field for MVP?
Yeah, the Fox says the field, right? Especially at those odds. Just wrote a newser at Yahoo Sports yesterday. The public loves Joe Burrow. They are betting him hand over fist to win MVP. Right now, he is tied for the second choice at plus 600 with Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson is the favorite at plus 550 at BetMGM. But Burrow has the most bets, around 16%, and the most money, around 24%. Of total dollars wagered, and that's at BetMGM, but at multiple sports books that I checked in with, Burrow is number 1 in tickets and number 1 in handle. So public definitely liking Joe Burrow. As we discussed, a lot of that I think is a combination of probably a really bad defense, not that difficult to schedule, and also Burrow just being a really good quarterback, putting up big numbers, obviously having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. We expect that offense to be good. The big questions are obviously on defense. So you expect him to put up big numbers. He did that last year. They only went 9-8. So that's also a question. He was also 3rd in QBR behind Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So really good season last year. Can he do better this season? The big bets, though, on Lamar Jackson, 2 big bets out there, both $50,000 on Lamar Jackson, one at plus 550, one at 6-1. So that would win $275,000 and $300,000. So a lot of those big bets on Lamar Jackson. And I'd be remiss to say as well, if I didn't say that Washington Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels, second most money and second most tickets at BetMGM to win MVP. So like we talked about, he had a historic rookie season. Bettors think he could be in for even more in his sophomore season.
Yeah, I mean, Caroline, I keep telling her to stop making these $50,000 bets before these segments. I just don't know how to stop her. What about the Colts? We talked a little bit yesterday about Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones and what difference it's going to make for this team moving forward. What does the Fox say about the Colts and Anthony?
Yeah, the Fox says not so much on the Colts, I think. So talking to some people, some bettors that I respect, they like the Colts under 7.5. And some of that was before the Richardson decision as well, but obviously factoring that in too. The Colts are only favored in 4 games this season, so not expected to be necessarily to win all those, obviously depending on the line. Just because you're favored or not favored doesn't mean you'll win or lose, but a better chance to in the odds makers' eyes. And I do a quarterback against the spread rankings piece every preseason, basically comparing the starter versus the backup and how much they're worth against the spread. And I had Anthony Richardson as the starter because obviously you have to project someone as the starter. And he was actually slightly better than Daniel Jones in the eyes of 12 odds makers against the spread. Now, again, it was only 0.8 points, I believe, so it wasn't a lot. But they're also 31st of 32 teams in quarterback rankings against the spread. So not a great quarterback. They do have a good offensive line, do have a good defense. But I just think ultimately a lot of people like their under. And in the AFC South, they're the least bet team to win that division of the 4 teams. I think people more looking at the Jaguars as a potential sleeper in that division if you don't believe in the Texans. And also with Daniel Jones, we know Anthony Richardson, maybe not the most accurate, obviously higher ceiling, lower floor. I think the opposite for Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones also has a long injury history too. So there's no saying, no telling that Anthony Richardson won't get a chance to play as well sometime during this season. So not as high on the Colts. And as well, our friends over at FTN Fantasy, for example, they have them projected only 6.8 wins and a 22% chance to make the playoffs. Jaguars 9 wins, 54% chance to make the playoffs, and obviously both of them behind the Texans. So I think the Colts kind of third in that division, at least in my eyes.
It's crazy to me that the Colts are getting less money to win that division than the Tennessee Titans, the worst team in the NFL last year. Obviously, they're bringing in a rookie quarterback, year 2 under Brian Callahan. What does the Fox say about Cam Ward and his potential to be Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Wow. The Fox says not a bad shot for Cam Ward. I think so. Part of the reason as well for the AFC South there is just the odds, right? So the Titans are plus 775. They're about 20% of the bets, but I will say only 6% of the money. So kind of some of those smaller long shot bets to win the division. I think anytime you have a quarterback, a rookie quarterback, we've seen that obviously with Jaden Daniels go well. We've seen that with Caleb Williams last year not go so well. And so a lot of it's going to be the coaching and the surrounding players. They don't have a ton on offense, which I think is the concerning part a little bit for Ward. So I wouldn't be as bullish on he's going to get a chance to play, right? And we'll see how they are. Their win total, I believe, is 5.5. So not a ton expected from them. But I think there are other options potentially in the rookie market, especially a little further down that you might look at as opposed to Cam Ward. But we'll see. He also has a very tough opening week, week 1 against the Broncos in Denver. I believe they're 7.5 or 8-point underdog. So against the projected number 1 or number 2 defense in the league at Mile High, we'll get a pretty good sense early on of how Cam Ward looks.
All right, speaking of bad teams, the Saints expected to finish with the fewest regular season wins, according to sportsbooks. So what does the Fox say on New Orleans being the worst team in the NFL?
The Fox says a very good chance. This is a team, I know one odds maker I spoke with, he had already faded them in week 1. I think he'd taken the Cardinals about -4.5. That lines up to -6. Their win total is 5.5. He definitely went under. A lot of other odds makers just said there's been an avalanche of money basically on the under. This actually opened the Saints at 6.5 with Derek Carr. Obviously, he retires. That line goes down to 5.5. And it's heavily juiced as well. I think you can probably find 4.5 in some places. They just have, again, we mentioned the quarterback rankings. The Colts were 31st. Well, the Saints were 32nd. And that was with Tyler Shaw projected as a little over half a point better than Spencer Rattler. And so just with those two, bad quarterback situation. If you go to the backup, it's not like a savior is there. Chris Olave, obviously history as well of concussions. They do have some offensive playmakers, but I think it's just going to be a long season in New Orleans. They do have the third easiest schedule by opposing season win totals. But again, if you have the worst quarterback situation in the league and you're never going to be better at quarterback, how well are you really going to do? I think under 5.5 is a good bet.
Yeah, not great in New Orleans. But what is great is that we have college football this weekend in week 0. We've got the Dublin game going down, Kansas State, Iowa State. I know it's not, Texas, Ohio State, or LSU Clemson like we get in week 1, but it's still football. So what does the Fox say about the Dublin game this weekend? Iowa State or Kansas State, who you taking?
Yeah, the Fox is saying Kansas State. I will say the Sharps took Iowa State. This was Kansas State -3.5, someplace -4. Sharps took Iowa State +3.5. We're down to Kansas State -3. Total around 50.5, which has gone up a little bit. Public likes Kansas State too, around 55% of the bets at BetMGM, and does like the over. About 65% of the bets, 80% of the money on the over. A couple of my writers like Kansas State as well. Corby Craig likes Avery Johnson to win the Heisman. 40-1 is one of his picks. And this is kind of a perfect showcase for Johnson. He likes him as well to go over his rushing yards in that game. I think in this game, Iowa State last year played pretty well, kind of held Johnson down. And Corby expects with a better offensive line with Kansas State that they'll squeak this one out. And again, field goal spread, so should be a close game, should be a good game. You never really know when college teams are traveling overseas to Dublin, but I think this should be a great game, a showcase game for the first weekend of college football.
Ben, we've done a lot of talking about the new app and everything that's out there in Yahoo Sports app. There's a new betting hub, my friend, and this is great information for everybody. Sports betting news and analysis. Tell everybody what's going on there.
Yeah, we just launched Betting Hub yesterday, and a lot of great writers, a lot of great partners. The goal is basically just, much like Yahoo Sports, make you a smarter fan, in this case, a smarter sports bettor. So whether that's content written by me, written by some of my writers, or taken from some of our partners, really just understanding how to have fun with sports betting and really why you're making the bet has always been my biggest thing. Don't take it from social media. Just toss a bet down. We're trying to make people smarter and really get them to potentially win some money or at least have a lot more fun doing it. So really excited to have that launch, and everyone should go check it out.
yahoosports.com/betting. We'll work on recreating the What Does the Fox Say video together as soon as we can so that we can do that every single week. It just seems good. Ben, thanks for the time, my friend. We appreciate you this morning.
Thanks, Ben.
Anytime.
Great stuff from Ben Fox as we continue to break down everything. Ben's going to be on regularly. I don't know if he'll wear the Fox outfit, but I certainly would. That much I do.
You have one.
And I
Handy.
also, well, no, but I mean, that's what Amazon was created for, right? Like, I mean, if I can't get a Fox outfit by tomorrow, I riot. Okay. Oh, we've gone downhill. What I do know is if we were dressed as foxes dancing around, it would make it on the internet. Speaking of the internet, look at that transition. Scrolling.
There it
We'll
is.
get to some of the most incredible moments from the internet coming up next. Yahoo Sports Daily.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't know this, but my dad is he's my right hand man, and he didn't even have running water until he was in high school. So there's definitely a lot of things and people that I think I could certainly help with this gift I've been blessed with. But yeah, just little things like that. I don't really know anybody back at home with any money, so yeah, it feels good. I mean, it's certainly a weight off my shoulders and my family's shoulders, and yeah, it definitely means a lot.
Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline, Fenton, Jason Fitz. We're going to go through some stuff we see scrolling, but Caroline, I see that raw, real emotion from Tyson Bagent, and I'm just reminded at how important this is for life. Life aside from everything. There is a true and genuine moment of $10 million is generational wealth for him, for his family, for his community. You see that emotion, and it just reminds you that this is bigger than just the game we watch on Sundays.
When I first saw that clip, it genuinely brought tears to my eyes because it is so real and it is so raw and it is so emotional, and it is a wonderful reminder to all of us of, a lot of times we complain about these players make too much money, that so on and so forth, that we have so many issues and qualms with the league. And look, that's fair. Those are all totally fair and justified. But this is such a lovely and authentic reminder that this kind of money and being afforded the ability to play football in the National Football League is such a beautiful gift. And I think that it is a reminder to me, we talk about, NIL, and a lot of people talk about how NIL has ruined college sports. Has it? Because a lot of players now can buy their families, nice homes that they maybe never could have afforded before. They get to give back to their parents or to their siblings, or in Tyson Bagent's, his perspective and his experience, he gets to do something that not really many people from his town get to do, and that is create generational wealth. So it is such a lovely, lovely reminder and a nice little happy.
Yeah, Tyson, come on the show, man. We want to talk to you. We want to hang out with you. This is such a cool moment. I'd love for this story to get even more opportunity to be shared. So we're just openly out here just campaigning. Tyson Bagent, you need to join Yahoo Sports Daily. We'd love to hang out with you. In the meantime, let's get to scrolling. You know what we do. We like to look at some of the best moments from the internet over the course of the last 24 hours and see some of the fun action that is out there. Caroline, let's start this with Paige Beckers. A career night in LA, 44 points. By the way, that is tying the rookie record for most points. That is the most points this season. Just a huge night for Paige Beckers.
Call her what her name really is, and that is Paige Buckets, because she's earned that nickname for a reason. 44 points, single game rookie record in the WNBA. She was also 17 of 21, so she becomes the first player in WNBA history to shoot at least 80% from the field while scoring 40 or more points. Unbelievable night for Paige Beckers, especially after the first couple of weeks and months and the first few games in this season. Paige had her kind of rookie roadblocks, and that's going to happen anytime you go from one level up to another level. And now we are seeing the impact that Paige can make on the league. Do hate it because the Wings still lost last night, even in a 44-point effort from Paige Beckers. Kelsey Plum hit a buzzer beater to win it 81-80. The Sparks beat the Wings last night, but still an unbelievable night for Paige Beckers. And I cannot wait to see what she continues to do, not just in her rookie season, but throughout her what I expect to be successful WNBA career.
Look, Paige is a superstar. And to your point, she comes off of a Connecticut run. She gets basically what feels like 3 days rest, and all of a sudden she's in the WNBA. So, my God, I think we need to start acknowledging some of the superstars coming into the league over the next few years are going to change the course of the conversation around the WNBA. Paige is one of those. She's a superstar. She's a building block. She's a billboard. Paige is going to be one of the names that we just become synonymous with greatness in the WNBA for the next generation. All right, let's go through some more of these scrolling moments out here, including, all right, it's the best thing I've ever tasted. Klay Thompson on Meg Thee Stallion's Catfish and Spaghetti. Catfish and spaghetti seems weird to me.
Look, I love catfish and I love spaghetti, so why the heck not? And I love Klay Thompson and Megan Thee Stallion together. I adore, that's my couple of the year. Love it. Absolutely love it. They're so giddy with each other.
I love peanut butter and sushi, but I'm not eating them at the same time. It's just a weird combo.
It's not that weird.
Okay. Fine. And speaking of WNBA earlier, Caitlin Clark, we've got some injury updates on Caitlin out here. Suffered a very mild bone bruise in her left ankle during a workout in Phoenix on August 7th. August 7th. We're just not finding out. Doesn't affect her return timeline. Clark will still be out rehabbing her groin injury. It just feels like this is not the year of Caitlin Clark. Unfortunately, her body is not cooperating with what we all want.
And she's even said this is the first time that I feel old, so that I can't just run around and have it not affect me. So I think that there's a lot of probably mental and emotional toll that's been taken on Caitlin Clark. I mean, she went from being absolute phenom in Iowa, playing in the national championship game, was the #1 overall pick, and then straight into her rookie season with the Indiana Fever. This past offseason was the first time in 2 years she's actually been able to take a break. That will catch up with you, your mind, your body, your spirit, all of these things. So I think the best thing that we can hope for is a quick recovery for Caitlin Clark and a bounce back season in 2026 for her in the Fever.
Not sure what we're hoping for Russ, but no Russ in the NBA this season. Maybe it wouldn't be surprising if Russell Westbrook enters the upcoming season unsigned. So, tip of the cap to what has been, we're used to seeing Russ and being able to talk about Russ every week. That will not be the case, at least at the beginning of the season in all expectation.
But the NBA is better with Russell Westbrook. I do think he eventually finds a home at some point, but you always want to see a guy walk out on his own terms. I don't want to see a guy the caliber of Russell Westbrook that has done as much as he has in his career going out not on his own terms. But I think he finds a landing spot somewhere.
I want to see Shedeur Sanders throwing dimes. This was yesterday at practice. Look, guys, we got to get Shedeur into every show. It's good for search engine optimization. I'm just kidding. Look at that throw. That throw was amazing.
It is a beauty. It was an absolute beauty. It doesn't mean he should be the starter, but it was a beautiful throw. And I cannot wait to see how much he and Dylan Gabriel both grow throughout the season, and hope that we can see them starting on Sundays at some point this year, but it is not right now. Just a reminder.
I just can't wait for the preseason finale when Shedeur has a perfect game and everybody's still losing their minds that he's not starting week 1. This is electric, and this is going to happen all year. Even if Shadeur's not on the field, if Flacco or Pickett is and they don't play well, it's just going to be a year-long soap opera. Who needs General Hospital? We've got the Cleveland Browns quarterback room. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. right here from 9 to 11 Eastern. Thank you so much for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We will see you first thing tomorrow morning.